Steve. Well, I'll let the panel introduce themselves in a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoying the event so far. I don't think we've lost anyone to the sunny roof terrace, although in a couple of hours' time, I think the networking drinks will be rather full. It's very inviting. So my name is James Robinson. I'm an analyst with Assembly Research. Here to host this session on, well, if the morning's panels are anything to go by, you know, it's an incredibly important but also a pressing issue, whether that's for fibre builders in the UK, for investors, for government, or just for kind of industry watchers like myself. I think I've got a minute or two just to set the scene. I think it's, while we are going to be focused on the demand side of the equation, it's instructive at least to kind of acknowledge the progress that's been made on the supply side. Not too long ago, the UK was considered to be on a low fibre diet. I think you know, we're rectifying that. Rollouts have happened, they are happening. Significant sums of money has been invested in UK fibre networks, and that will continue to be the case over the coming years. And a lot of that progress is due to the efforts and the deployments of the Wildanet community, many of whom will be in this room today. And that's, those rollouts have triggered responses from the largest players in the market to expand their own fibre visions, to shorten their timelines for delivery and increase investments. We recently looked into the role of connectivity challenges and found some similar scenarios at play across a number of European markets, whether that's Denmark and Germany, with regional players prompting the incumbent to really you know, make that transition to fibre. In France, it was the role of smaller rivals in triggering Orange to kick off its fibre rollout and really maintain the pace of that over time. So we can't underplay the importance of infrastructure-based competition, and governments and regulators, of course, have a role to play in setting the appropriate conditions for that. But I think the big distinction between those markets that we looked at and where we are in the UK is on the demand side. With the UK arguably lagging behind you know, a number of those leading markets like Portugal and Spain that got mentioned a couple of times today. In those markets, fibre accounts for the vast majority of connections. It's what's driving new broadband connections, with legacy DSL services discontinued or relegated to being sources of cheap holiday home connectivity. Very high speeds is the locus of competition. But as I say, we're not there yet in the UK. KPIs are evolving, and focus is shifting from premises passed to connections. And that's essentially what we're here to discuss today. Fortunately, I'm joined by this expert panel to have that conversation. I'll be putting a few questions to them, but hopefully, you know, leaving 5 minutes or so at least for questions at the end, so that we can hear from the audience. Okay, so without further ado, let's hear let the panel introduce themselves. Aziz, perhaps we'll start with you, coming back to me.
My name is Aziz. I'm Business Development Director at Netgem TV. We're a French-listed company. We are all over Europe and the UK. We've got about 30 telcos on board. We've got about over 500,000 subscribers, and we provide TV and streaming videos to ISPs and altnets and telco. We've got a few partners here. We've got 15 partners in the UK, plus talk. And that's why we're here, to help you guys with your customer acquisition and stickiness.
My name is Eoin Heaney. I'm responsible for sales in the international theatre at Calix. Calix is a 23-year-old company headquartered in San Jose. We're a cloud and software platform company, very much focused on enabling the altnet market particularly, be ultra successful in the way they deliver services to their subscribers. We cover the PE edge all the way through to the BNG, to the OLT and the access domain. And with a very significant focus then in the subscriber edge in terms of how you deliver services through Wi-Fi gateways, Wi-Fi 6, 7, whatever comes next. With cloud analytics to enable you to understand how you're delivering those services, what services you should deliver, how you differentiate personas in your install base, and then how you actually drive revenue, drive ARPU, and drive growth in your business.
So I'm Gonzalez. I am from Clarity, global tech comms agency. I run our corporate strategy division, so we're focusing a lot on crisis comms, reputation management, thought leadership, brand building, messaging and coaching, etc. So I've worked for about 25 years in the industry in many different parts of the world. So here to talk a little bit about the role of, I guess, how corporate comms is evolving and can help organizations in a very interesting and obviously increasingly competitive market.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matthew Hare. I'm the founder and chief executive of Zzoomm. We have 14,000 very happy customers because we build and operate full fibre networks. They cover 142,000 customers, potential customers, so that's 128,000 that we've still got to go at before we build anything else. There's 4,100 businesses in there, to answer a question someone asked about businesses earlier on today, that we don't yet have as customers as well, of the 128,000.
Hi, I'm Helen Wylde. I'm the CEO of Wildanet. We serve Devon and Cornwall. 94% of everyone who works for us lives in those two counties. We serve consumers, businesses and communities. And what we aim to do is fibre the southwest so that we don't get left behind in terms of digital inclusion for both business purposes and for social and for the environment.
Fantastic, thank you, Eoin. I'm going to kick off with our Allnet CEOs then. Any kind of opening remarks on the views on the UK fibre landscape today, where we are with, you think we are with adoption, and generally whether you think the take-up rate should be of any concern?
Shall I go first?
Sure.
Okay. So I think where we are at the moment is that we haven't understood how to involve the market. So my background is sales and marketing, which is most unusual in the industry, I realise, so I'm always going to come at it in a certain way. The insights that we're seeing is that there's 6 reasons that customers need fibre, but don't assume that they know that. Now, 4 of those we've actually discussed today, and I'm not going to tell you what the other 2 are because that's my secret sauce, you can forget that. But there's 6 clear reasons. When we are on the doorsteps with customers and they're saying, I don't know that I need it, when we have that conversation, there is an education piece about the value that you can create. You need to tell them what the value proposition is. You need to understand the segmentation, and you need to really drive home what is the insight, the key insight where they're going to buy your product. And when you've done that, you've got to build a set of products and services and a brand around that which makes you attractive. And there is a play for the altnets in this marketplace. We fulfill hyper-local activity. I think someone else said that earlier on. We look after those customers, and we have a unique opportunity to meet the gaps which are left in what is actually a largely unfulfilled market at this time. So I would see the opportunity to create demand in this market as absolutely outstanding, which is why the investment levels are still so high. It is now the onus is on us to create that customer opportunity, that customer relationship, and drive that through with great branding so that we get good adoption rates in the UK, and we follow others who are leading to the benefits that brings basically to the economy overall.
Matthew?
Well, one of my favourite books ever is for business. It's called Good to Great. I don't know how many people have read that, but there's lots of really cracking bits in. But actually, just if you look at the title, it kind of describes the conundrum. Actually, the broadband available over copper in the UK is actually quite good. Now, I know I shouldn't be saying that because I'm a full fibre guy. Clearly, I've been building fibre since 2010 here, but it is actually quite good compared to lots of other countries. If you go to, why has Romania got so much more fibre than we have here? Because their copper network was absolutely shocking. And so when they wanted better connectivity, trying to upgrade the copper network just wasn't a problem. Wasn't an option. So you had literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies who went up and set up their own little fibre businesses, and then in the 90s and early noughties, they all got amalgamated together, and they have actually very good fibre connectivity in Romania now. But that's because where they started from was they didn't have another opportunity. We talk about Spain as being a great example of somewhere where they have really good fibre. Well, yes, they do, but then European Union taxpayers paid for the whole of Spain to be reducted, and as a result of that, sharing ducts and using really good quality ducts is incredibly cheap. You can actually build a fibre network in cities in Spain for €99 per property passed. You can get a fixed price contract from contractors who will build you that network. So so that the environment therein is very different. Now, where are we here in the UK? Actually, I don't think we're doing that badly. We've certainly in the early noughties, building fibre. I remember when Ofcom came to see me building in 2014 in a little village called Farmore in Oxfordshire, and they came to see me. The main board of Ofcom came to see me because basically they'd been told by everybody, you cannot build fibre in the UK and make money. Those two things clearly weren't true. You can build it and you can make money, and that I think brings us on to what most of the topic's going to be here today. You can only make money by actually having customers who want to pay your bills, and that's what we'll talk about today on this panel.
Yeah, indeed it does. I'm going to do a quick straw poll, so a bit of audience participation. Earlier, Steve, nice soundbite from him was build it and they will come is not working. The idea that you just put this fibre in the ground and and consumers are going to flock to it. Maybe they'll be willing to pay more for it, and they're going to switch from the big players. Hands up if you agree with Steve that the build it and they will come is not working. Look at that.
Well, it depends.
Right. I'm going to call that cross-industry consensus building, and look how simple that was. The difficult, I think, thing is what comes next, right? How you actually, how we drive the awareness and take up that we're here to talk about. To do that, I think it's useful to set out what we see as the major challenges that ISPs in the UK are facing in order to drive adoption. Perhaps I can bring in some of the panelists. Anyone want to kind of start at the 10 here? Major challenges to driving adoption.
I think the major challenges to driving adoption is we tend to focus a lot on fibre as a word, and the reality is that subscribers don't really understand what that means. Subscribers understand what it means to be able to turn on lights and run the washing machine and run the dishwasher all at the same time in the context of electricity. In the context of broadband, they want to be able to run Zzoomm, they want to be able to run Netflix, they want to be able to game all at the same time. But they don't necessarily understand what speed is as a concept. And we tend to over-rotate, I think, a little bit as an industry around speed, whereas what we really need to start thinking about, I think, is what is the experience that subscriber is having? Are they being choked? Are they being throttled, from a speed perspective? Can I see that? Are they having a good experience across all of their devices in the home? Can I see that? Do I have the insights, the data, to be able to actually see that? Are there, is Michael a different type of persona to Eoin? Should I be actually driving different types of campaigns to the market in the context of the way we use the service? So I think there are lots of different things that we can do to actually educate the market in that context. And I think it all comes back to how do we change from being connectivity providers to being experience providers. And that's a transformation I think that we're going to see happen in the UK over the next couple of years. I think it's a massive opportunity for the audience here in this room to actually really address that and run with it and develop new services beyond just speed that subscribers will take.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the interesting things, as you were saying, build it and they will come. Being in comms, you kind of wired to believe that speed is of the essence. So I wouldn't agree with that. I think that it's, I think that companies today have a new level of responsibility and accountability to inform consumers. I don't think we can wait for whether it's government or to always tell us what's going to happen. If you have the information, if you have the accurate information, we have companies have an accountability to really kind of inform their customers about what is going on to help make them make kind of easier decisions, etc. So that's to the point about build it and they'll come. I think obviously a word that we've heard a lot today earlier as well is education, awareness, etc. I think that is a big challenge for again companies, altnets, etc. to gain new customers, is cutting through this very competitive landscape. And brand value, brand trust is essential today. I mean, there's little secret that trust in corporates and governments is not exactly at an all-time high. So I think all companies have a tough job to build and gain trust with consumers, and I think that being out there quickly, talk about the things that are important is critical. And to your point about speed and price, someone made the point earlier that if the only competition is going to be around speed and price, it's going to be a race to the bottom, and probably for some quite a short competition. It's going to be quite a short race. So I think that companies really need to build values beyond speed and price. You kind of go out and assume that speed and price is right. It works, the product works. But what else? What are the other values that you can build around your brand to create those communities that will get you new customers, build communities? We talked a little bit before about local communities, which is essential. But I also think that communities can be built on values as well. What do you stand for? Because a lot of consumers today buy into products and services that aren't just about the price and the speed. Is it what do they stand for? What are their values? And that's how can I identify with an organization through my own values, etc. So I think those things are going to be increasingly important. And again, offering services that that are relevant to the consumers beyond just the product, and that could be local information. It could be again advice on new regulations and policy coming out. Becoming a go-to hub for more than just the product and service. And I think that's how you get new customers, and how you build long-term loyalty and you expand communities.
I guess picking up on the kind of misunderstanding of consumer understanding or misunderstanding, and the idea about real fibre versus fake fibre. How much of that do you think has been a barrier to adoption today?
I think
open question.
Two things here, because I've been hearing from Matthew and Helen. And Helen got sales background, but Matthew got tech background. And when Matthew,
that's news to me.
Yeah, but he knows about sales, and saying you got the rural and the urban, and there's a big divide. If you're in an urban area and you come with fibre, it is no selling skills, but it is a customer uptake is going to be high. Because you knock on the door and you've got fibre speed. I was waiting for it for 10 years. I'll take it. But when you are overbuilding and you are in an area when you've got to compete against the big four plus other alternate, the consumer, we look at brands. They don't know you. If your name is Hyperoptic or Zzoomm or whatever, so you have to work on the brand. But also, when they look at who to buy from broadband, they've been educated by the big four for the last 3 decades to buy packages, bundles. That's what you add to that, the inertia. So for an outnet to acquire my custom, they had to battle against the brand, against those big four where they had my custom for the last 10 years. I live in an area in Wimbledon where community fibre are doing a great job. But sometimes you got a building of 40 flats, the uptake is 10%. It's not because community fibre are not good at what they do, but consumers are sitting with EE. To come back to the point that Matthew said, I had EE, broadband on the copper, but the speed was 30 meg, and I was happy with it for 10 years. So that you go to Europe, as I said, and we cater. We got our own ISP in France, and the mindset there is bundle and is a brand, and they look at their shopping customs is just buying broadband, TV, mesh, and telephony, and to increase the uptake, I think those added value service and the brand will knock on the door of any consumer. Okay, I'll cut the cord with Virgin, or Sky, or BT, or Total, and the first thing we're going to offer me. And the easy part is to acquire the customer, but the hard part is how to retain it. If you got waiting for your ROI on 24 months, 36 months, giving those I'll see pricing sometimes for 1 gig are really cheap prices, and I think a consumer will be bargain hunters, but to stay with you for the long run, that's what you want. You want to acquire the customer, but also to keep it. You have to come with a package and a brand, which is said to the consumer, we're here to stay, we're here in the community, but also we're a one-stop shop. And I think that's the trigger for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think we're kind of we agree in that change needs to happen. There are obstacles to overcome. I guess the meat of this is how do we make it happen then? How do we drive take up? What can be done and what should be done? Helen, you go on.
Yeah, so you have got to have the customer, like in any business, at the heart of what you do, and it's got to sit in the middle, and that's nothing wet or soppy. At the end of the day, it was a conversation at the beginning about revenue. Revenue is customers. That's where it comes from. And once you've got that firmly fixed in your head, it becomes your sole operation. Whether you are part of the marketing team, the sales team, whether you're part of the operation, that's what it all evolves around. If I talk about rural a little bit and where we are and what we have to do, we are having to deal with a number of different issues. And when you build your proposition, these need to be included. So in Cornwall, 1 in 5 people are on universal credit. We are the poorest county in the UK. So there's beautiful beaches, there is real poverty there, okay? So when we are designing tariffs and value promise and promise that you're not going to put up mid-tariff is really, really important, social tax, everything, you've got to do that. Now actually, most people won't take those, but they need to know that you are standing from a position of strength in terms of your morality. And that's the first question. The second is coverage, and people will wait for it. They will wait for it. They need it because a lot of people are running small businesses from home, they're part working, they're working when they've got holiday homes, etc. The farms are just completely left behind, okay? And putting fibre into farms and making sure milk floats can make them in is a really important part of what we do, and we take that very seriously. The third element that you've then got to embrace is just forget speed. That's not what it's about. What they want is a package which works for them, and you work through them with them, you put those packages and services together, and you give them the reassurance of your brand that you're going to wrap them and look after them, and you're going to make sure they know exactly what's going on at all times. And you have to be an absolute integral part of the community in doing that. You will not win without a brand position of strength in that particular piece. And the final thing is you need to be a mentor and a leader. And what I mean by that is the words earlier on from the Good Things Foundation just resonate with me across the board in Devon and Cornwall. But we have a major problem. There isn't a lack of digital confidence, okay? And actually when you're standing on the doorstep with people, it doesn't matter about age. You can have a really fit 80-year-old who knows everything more than you do about it, or you can have somebody who knows nothing at all. And you've got to embrace that, and you've got to make them feel confident about buying your technology, and you've got to make them understand what they can do with it, spend the time and listen to their problems. If you haven't got time, you haven't got customers. And people think that knocking doors and sending out pieces of marketing are quick conversations. They are not in this world. We are a mile off in terms of those insights, understanding what customers need. And if your brand stands for anything, it needs to stand for that ability to embrace the customers into your world and help them understand what's going on and embrace confidence and make them feel good about your brand, answer the questions they've got, and then look after them for the lifetime that they are with you. And that's the real mission we are now on. It's lifetime value for the customer, putting them at the heart of what you do. And once you've got that, your business will function so much better because you're all dealing with one thing. And as an industry, candidly, will function better because actually we seem to have an absence of discussion about customer. And that really is what this is all about. And if you want the revenue, there's only one way to get it. You need the customer. And if you want the customer, it's no different than going dating. You've got to be attractive.
Is that about marrying up that build and brand then, that local presence, identity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one of the points I wanted to make earlier as well was the role of comms in terms of customer acquisition and customer service, etc., has a big part to play. The problem at the moment, I think that you see in a lot of cases that comms is up here, marketing is down there, sales is down there, digital is down here, public affairs is down there, environmental expertise is over here. Works in quite a fragmented, isolated way, and that's never going to work. So comms have to be very closely aligned with everything that we do, including customer service, etc., because comms supports everything that an organization does. And if we mentioned before, and I saw that there's a report a few days ago, you probably saw it as well, that only 55% of people have taken up the social tariffs because people are pointing the finger at Ofcom to say, well, it's because you haven't informed it enough, and that it's, people just don't know about it, etc., etc. If you have a comms function that is closely aligned with public affairs, for example, it means that you probably have an insight into some of these issues that maybe others don't, and you can be on the front foot by informing, again, people about this, which will is an essential part of customer service, etc. So I think that is how you talk about the identity and the values and the reputation of the company. I think that all of these critical functions needs to be much more aligned, because I think that's only there where, to use your words, you can do successful dating.
Matthew, please.
Well, I think looking at it from the point of view of the customer, the first thing is they've actually got to notice you. You've actually got to stand out, because every customer is bombarded by thousands of pieces of communication every day. Everything they're doing, there's somebody trying to communicate to them. So the first thing is you actually have to stand out. They actually have to notice what you are. Now, if you're actually digging up the road outside their house and you've got a nice branded van, fun enough, they will notice you. Now, about 2 in 10 of them will hate you, but the other 8 will remember you. The 2 in 10 will probably never buy from you. That is the first thing you've got to bear in mind is, all the altnets are essentially teeny tiny companies selling an unknown product to people who've never heard of them. And that's the first thing you've got to overcome. Why on earth should they listen to you in the first place? So you need to have a different look and feel. You might notice my picture's a little bit different to everyone else's. There you are, I'm going, I want you out of my picture. And that talks to everything we do in our company about how we're trying to make ourselves stand out in the minds of the people we're trying to communicate to. We want to look different, we want to sound different, we want to feel different. Some people tell me, you modelled your brand on Play-Doh from the 1970s. Now, obviously the young people in the room won't have a clue what I'm talking about. But Play-Doh had these incredibly bright colours, and of course it was designed to be attractive to children, but actually it was incredibly memorable for adults as well. And so, actually picking something that people are going to remember. So you don't, trying not to be rude to anyone else here, you don't pick greens and blues, because those are the colours that the big corporates who you're competing with, those are the colours they use to make you feel that they're environmental. They make you want to feel that they're trustworthy. Blue is trustworthy. That's what it means in people's heads. And so you need to do something that's going to make them actually notice you and remember you, because that's the toughest thing you're going to do, is actually try and stand out, and so people can actually think that there's something that you're saying that it might be worth listening to. I probably should stop there. I could probably go on for quite a long time.
No, that's all right. It's just if anyone wants to jump in at this moment.
No, just to pick up on those 2 points about the van and the branding. You put any van next to any house, and 10, 20 years ago, people look up to Virgin Van and Skyvan. Now, you look at their vans, they're all wrapped with Premier League, Champions League, Batman, Top Gun, the lot. And now for an altnet to come and build that brand costs a lot of money, and to make yourself noticeable, and to come to an urban area or to a village or a town. What we did, at Netgem, we signed a lot of content partners from PT Sport, Netflix, Prime, a lot, and those are really impactful. And you associate any altnet with those brands, and you knock on the door, you park your van, they will look up to that, and you get their attention. And I think packaging deals and go in, talking about uptake and how to get penetration, and we heard it on the panels before. We look at the uptake in urban area and rural area is around 20%, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but now we are at a junction where ISPs now not stopping to build but starting to sell. You have to to look at the sales strategy and how we're going to acquire those customers by bringing them a package, a one-stop shop, where if I knock on the door and somebody doesn't know me, at least I've got something to say yes to, especially now the consumers want a one package. If you go to get electricity and gas, you get your fuel. If you get insurance, you do multi-cars. If you buy broadband and you look at this utility, You always look to cut the cord with the big four, but you want the AdNet because it's offering you a fantastic product. But I would like to get everything in one place. And I think moving forward, the altnets had to look at packet selling, bundling, and acquiring those customers, not for like a 12 months or 24 months, but for the long run. And to join Matthew where he said the brand is really important. And
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Sorry, you wanted to come in on brand.
yeah, can I just, so I'm willing to share this with this audience. So a brand is what you want to be known for. And it is probably, other than deciding where you're going to build your network and what you're going to do, it's probably the most important decision you'll ever make as a company. And you need to have a mission, vision and values. And it sounds trite, but if you don't know who you're going to serve and what you're trying to do, no one's going to give a toss. Now our brand was designed by Sir John Hegarty, who designed Orange, okay, and a number of pieces. And you can say what you like, we're a small altnet, but yes, we paid out for that, and that's the best money we spent other than building the network, because he helped us put together a brand presence to carry us across the 400 miles of the southwest. And actually, he gave him shares in our company, so he took a bit of a gamble with us instead, right? Okay, and that gave us a whole plan about how we launched our brand. You know, I know that many of the altnets started from an engineering perspective, and there is nothing wrong with that. A good engineered network, it means you can sell it. But selling it also means wrapping it with the brand, and if you don't have those expertise internally, this is the moment to go to your board and blow some money on it, and maybe go to a really top class agency and ask them to take shares in the company on the back of it rather than pay the price. It will set you up, because actually if you look at Virgin and Vodafone and BT, with the greatest respect, they are marvellous marketing machines, okay? They know that, that's who you're up against, so you need to be a challenger brand. Believe me, challenger brand's the best place you can be, because you're literally David with the slingshot and bang, you take that, mate, right, and another one, okay? If you haven't got the slingshot and you haven't got the presence, then actually all that beautiful work on the network is never going to pay off. And it is a significant investment, and it shouldn't be done lightly. And if you don't have a board member who's a marketeer or a salesperson yet, go and get yourself one who used to work for one of the big companies and get them to help you do it. And it's the best money we've spent at Wildanet, and it was worth every single penny.
Balanced C-suite expertise important. What about, you know, I think the David Goliath analogy has been brought up a couple of times. You know, competing with the, you know, those big corporates with, you know, massive marketing engines. You know, what kind of mentality or, you know, approach, you know, should kind of all nets be taking?
Well, where you can stick the stiletto in, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is every customer way we win, they have to lose. You're essentially killing them by 1 billion cuts. So you need to work out where their weaknesses are, and that's and the nicest possible way. Why I have a slight problem with what Aziz is saying about it's all about bundles. I'm not convinced I can ever put together a better bundle than Sky can, because Sky has spent literally billions of pounds a year buying exclusive content that is only available through them. So, you know, can I ever do a bundle that's better than their bundle? I don't think so. So actually that isn't the battlefield I want to fight for customers on. I need to fight on a different battlefield where I know I can win. Now, we haven't talked about it yet, but, you know, one of the places that all of us focus on, you know, there's an altnet here who isn't focused on their Trustpilot score. You know, we're all thinking about, you know, how are externally we being measured by the people who we want to have as customers, and we can see, you know, every day. Firstly, the things we do wrong. I had an awful one yesterday. Some person who's not even a customer wrote this real rant about the fact that we're such awful people. Well, I can't stop them doing that, but they actually aren't a customer, so, you know, there's not a lot I can do about that. But ultimately, I actually care about what gets written about the company, and because I care, I tell you what, everyone else in the bloody company cares about it too, because what I care about, everyone else cares about. And so that is the soft underbelly for all of these bigger companies. But again, Sky is the best of them. You know, if you call up, my mum used to have a Sky contract. You could call up and talk to them on the phone. They actually picked up the phone. You didn't have to wait forever, and it wasn't like many of the other companies where you cannot get a human. I mean, you spend ages tapping out numbers so you can get to the right person, and then no one bloody answers. You know, it just goes ring, ring. I mean, it's just useless. So, you know, the things we can compete on are the things we want to differentiate on. You know, I want to be able to say we are the best at something. And I don't think we can be best at doing packages. Now, for some people, packages are everything, but for lots of people, actually, they don't want a great package. What they want is a great service.
I agree with. I mean, the one thing that I would say is also, like, people love challenges. Right? People love challenger brands because they stand for something new. They shake up the status quo. They're telling us that there's a different way of doing things. So that is, there's a heart and soul in an alternate that in the smaller brands that you don't often get in bigger brands. So it's a huge kind of moment to capitalize on. The one thing that I would say is that standing out is absolutely key. Being remembered is the other thing in terms of being relentless. And this can be hard because sometimes smaller firms don't have the resources to keep these kind of mega machines going like the big ones have. But it doesn't have to be super expensive and super time consuming, etc. You can do very, very effective things on your own channels like social media or whatever it is. There is a very effective way of maintaining that brand identity and being relentless about it. Keep it's almost to the point, I mean, I'm using the wrong word, but annoying people. But it's being there, creating that stickiness so that they remember you. And that is, and obviously, I've had the opportunity to work with small companies and large companies. And I also know, as many of you will probably know, large companies can take you months to get something signed off, right? Whereas smaller companies have a much leaner, comms machine. So use that to your advantage. You can get something out very quickly. You can be that first one. Don't wait for it to be built. Don't be the first one out because you actually have that agility to do it, and then commitment and relentless to it. That's how people remember you.
Owen, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it's all about the community. It all starts there, right? How do you make sure you're delivering an amazing experience, really brilliant experiences for your subscribers at the residential layer, then moving up into the SMB layer, and then into the community as a whole, and really owning that community. You need to have your brand on your app. It needs to be your brand, not somebody else's brand. Right? You need to own that experience with those subscribers because they tell everybody else when they've got a good experience. And that's how you build out further and further. And to Matthew's point, I mean, I think there are services that you can add. You just have to be clever about where you do it. You need to have the insights to know that Lloyd will buy a service based on the way he uses the service today, and Owen won't. And then you segment the way you actually go and build those packages based on the area that you're serving and the subscribers that you have in your network. And I think there's an amazing opportunity to build value in that approach for the altnets in this room.
I think we've got about just 5 or so minutes left, so I want to turn it over to the audience. Are there any questions for our panel on how to encourage demand and take up? Chap with the pink shirt.
Helen, just building on your point, I was going to make the same thing about Orange. You think about Orange, same industry as us. I think some of the other really fascinating learnings from that Orange launch were some of the ways they looked at it. I don't know if you remember, but I think it was Hans Snook banned the use of any mobile phone in an ad. They literally said, we're not going to talk about phones, we're going to talk about something else, Philip Glass music. And they grabbed benefits and used those. And it was just, it was exemplary on how you can break the mold by having a brand that stands out and is memorable. I remember listening to a football game where John Motson was commenting on the Dutch playing the English, and I think the Dutch scored 4 goals against us or something. And he actually said, "The future's bright, the future's orange" on BBC. And you think that's memorable. That is. So I think you have to be very creative about how you use your brand, and it's very powerful. Obviously easier if you've got the national reach and national budget of a Orange, but I think the principles are the same. So it was really more of an observation than a question.
Yes. No, we have one down the front there, Chris.
Hi, thank you, Andrew Camping. What you said earlier, I fundamentally agree with in terms of it needs to be focused on value, value proposition, if you will. I can see a future in 5 years' time where, given that most customers, think they're using Wi-Fi, they don't think they're using broadband, let alone gigabit or fibre, which they don't really care about. Given how internet standards are changing, I can see that I'm more likely to be buying a service from Apple or Google than most broadband providers. Other than your two companies, so Matthew and Helen, do you think the rest of the industry has got the wherewithal, the marketing house, to build a brand that will actually stand up against those players who are selling a fundamentally different experience, and they're certainly not selling technology?
I think there's two things. So I sincerely hope so, and many of the companies that I work alongside, I can see there are brands there. But there's another thing here, which you've just mentioned, which I used the word earlier on, disintermediation. I would be very careful who you have in your network in terms of suppliers. There is a value chain here which could be disaggregated against any of us, even the large players at any given time. So who you let in to provide the service and product around your product, around your service that you're offering, cannot be allowed to disrupt your brand. End of. And with the rise of wholesale, that means you've got to balance the market, so you give customers choice and you allow them to have those choices for a wholesale, but you never allow your brand to be disaggregated in that way. And I think that is the challenge. And if you've got a brand position already, you've got something you can bump with, and you've got a place to start from. But if you don't have a brand presence, you are at risk by stealth of seeing other people coming in and they will eat our lunch. Because it's a really rich stream. Look at the level of investment in the industry. You know, that's why we've got people who are interested in investing, and people want to pick away at that. So it's a case of put your whole proposition together end to end and leave nothing out, and think about who do you want in there and what could they do to you.
Can I give a slightly different answer?
Yeah.
I mean, I think of it slightly differently. Sorry. There are actually two businesses here that we're in. I mean, the first is actually building and running a bit of infrastructure, and the second is then acquiring and managing customers. Now, I personally see them as being very closely linked at this stage in the business, but I do not necessarily think that's going to be the same thing in the future. You know, if you look at what's happened in Denmark with Telecom Denmark splitting off their infrastructure into a separate business, and shareholders essentially overnight doubling their money with no other changes. You know, there is clearly appetite from investors to invest in different types of assets very differently. So right now, do I think it's a good idea to be an all wholesale network? No, absolutely I don't. Do I think that in 4 or 5 years' time, you know, it may well be Sony, for example, who is the biggest ISP in the UK, because you know that's the only way you can get your latest games is if you're on the Sony ISP network. And bluntly, those people, if that's the only way they could get their games, they would move like that. But which network it went over, they wouldn't care. They would care if it was a crappy copper network, but as long as it was a full fibre network, they wouldn't mind who was delivering it.
I'm going to just do the final question I want to ask for just very kind of succinct remarks, if you can, from the rest of the panel from across the panel to close up. If we identify the barriers, we effect change, and do what needs to be done. What do we think? What's the prize on offer that we're looking at from in fibre here in the UK? What do we think can be achieved?
Who would you like to start, James?
Anyone.
Well, I'm Gobby, so I can go. I mean, this is, when you take a step back from all the problems we have today, what we are doing as an industry is absolutely unbelievably important for the future of our country, for everyone who lives here and everyone who works here. And just to put it in perspective, I am going to be in 20 years' time be an old git who will have difficulty, no doubt, getting out of bed in the morning. So I actually would much prefer a robot to be helping me out of bed than having a carer come into my house who frankly will be a different person every day and I don't care about them. I'd much rather have a robot do that. To make that happen, the infrastructure we're building needs to be everywhere, needs to be pervasive, because then the big computers can sit in the middle and you have smart eyes and smart hands that go and help you out of bed. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the next level of automation that's coming down the road that we are going to make happen. Without our plumbing, it ain't going to happen. So what we're doing is incredibly important, And bluntly, if we hadn't been doing it, you would not have Openreach being the biggest builder of fibre in the UK, because they'd still be telling everyone, don't worry, the copper network's fine, we'll do another upgrade, we'll do G-Fast Plus, and then don't worry, you'll all be fine because you'll get 100 mega each, or whatever it happens to be.
Final remarks?
So many years ago when I left university, I joined a company with a big red band, and I was number 53 through the door. And my dad said, they aren't going to make it, why don't you go and work for someone like Coca-Cola? Well, Vodafone are still around, aren't they? So, you know, as someone who now works at an altnet, I feel at the back end of my career, you know, there's opportunity to be disruptive in this market, and I think that's real value for the customer and for the investors, because actually we are the ones who can challenge some of the thinking, the big thinking, we can make the differences, we can reach the areas of the country which are getting left behind, like the ones that I live in, and make sure that that digital future that you've just described, Matthew, is available for everybody. And if that's what we've got to deliver as the altnet community, and that's the future where the brand goes, I think that's a really good outcome socially and economically for the country, and I think we've done our bit.
I think, well, first of all, I think what the altnets in this country have done over the last really short period of time, really just 5 years, is truly outstanding. I mean, compared to any other part of the world, the amount of fibre that you've laid in the ground is astounding. It's amazing. Congratulations to everyone doing that. I think what the industry faces is a challenge in terms of attracting young people into it. And the consequence of that is that, you know, they're going to the web scale players, generally speaking, and we're struggling as an industry to attract young people from university into our industry. I agree with Matthew. I mean, we got to automate everything, and we got to cloudify our businesses and cloudify our telecommunication infrastructures. And I think that's the next wave of what comes next after experience.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's a very bleak future if you can't embrace a digital infrastructure for all the obvious reasons. I think that's what you know, that it's not just the opportunities, they must. So huge part to play.
Just to finalise what Matthew just said about automation, and you guys, you've done a fantastic job, and now it's time to get the customer acquired, but also to retain them. Just to come back to the Sky thing, if we had Sky doing the best packages, I don't think it's an insult to altnets and tell them you can't compete, but I think if we listened 25 years ago, Netgem saying Sky and BT got duopoly in the UK, and we're not going to offer the altnets a TV and video package to them to compete, and every tool to allow, you know, altnet to acquire their customers is not only Wi-Fi mesh or VoIP, and we offer VoIP as well at Netgem, but you have to have all the tools to compete. Now, if you're in a rural area, and that's good luck to you because you don't compete, but a lot of altnets are nationwide or are in urban areas, and I think they need those tools to build the package. And if you look at the churners from Sky and BT and the other big four, I think there's 7 million of them, and that's the cake for all the altnets to pick up. And the household now, they don't have the money to get Sky bundle for 70 quid or the big bundle from Virgin Media. They can't afford that. So if you come as an altnet and you offer them 75% of what Sky offers, they bite your hand off. And I think that's the name of the game now, is just acquire them, but also stickers to keep them on a one-stop shop. And I think that's like, you know, we have been the altnets, and we've been here, and we can at least stay here. And talking about the cloud gaming, we launched the cloud gaming in Europe, and now we aggregating everything to have also one-stop shop with our UI, and you can have that also on just one-stop shop. And the altnets, like Zzoomm, can white label the product, and we're not in the game of saying just put Netgem everywhere, but you can call it Zzoomm as well, Zzoomm TV.
Right. Thank you, everyone. I guess you guys have that conversation. Continue that later on this afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions and for us for the platform.